Good morning, good morning, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sanbonani, Dumelang, Khotsong, Goeiemorgen to everyone here present and online. My name is Tolagele Umankwanyana Uzigode Umakhanda Udonda. Those are my clan names, and any African would know that that is how we greet as Africans. As one of the giants in the field would say, Ungungi Watiwongo, that any language carries a dual character. It possesses your communication as well as your culture as an African. That is why I was greeting like that, to show that I am an African. And as Africans, we acknowledge our clan names when we are greeting our people. Again, a special greeting to everyone here present today, as well as online. We welcome you. We understand that we are joined by our Mafikeng campus, welcome. We are joined by our Van der Bay Park campus, welcome, as well as our special guests joining as far as overseas. We welcome you and we recognize you. And I'm looking at the audience here today, looking all beautiful. Please give yourself a big round of applause for being part of the Language Awareness Week 2023. Colleagues, without wasting any time, I wanted to really apologize on behalf of our office for starting a bit late. We also had to ensure that we are well connected for our virtual guests as well. And now that we have ascertained that, we can proceed. Colleagues, today as we are gathered here, we are gathered under the theme of the Language Awareness Week, which is Multilingualism, the pathway to academic excellence through diverse resources. That's what we are spreading across all our campuses, across our virtual platforms as the Language Directorate. And the Colloquium, which we are here in today, is part of a series of activities that are happening in our campuses. We had an opening at Mafikeng on Monday, which was amazing. Yesterday we were at Van der Bay Park, which was also amazing. And today we are here at the Potchefstroom campus. Colleagues, the topic for today, as you would see on the agenda that I have just shared, for this colloquium specifically, it's decolonizing multilingual resources and institutions of higher learning. And I believe that our presenters today, they will be giving us enough to take home, enough to learn from, enough to digest as well, so that we can implement all these strategies, everything that they'll be sharing in our classrooms, in our university, as well as in life in general. Colleagues, without wasting any time, this was supposed to be a time when I call my director, Mr. Kiaseshoka, Dr. Kiaseshoka, but I understand that she's running a bit late. She'll be here in a sec. But just to briefly share with everyone here present whilst we wait for Dr. Sishoka to give us a special welcome. As you will all know that any event before it starts in an African culture, you have to be welcomed by an elder. You have to be welcomed by the head of the home. So I cannot do that, unfortunately, as a child. But one thing I would like to embrace today as we are celebrating our languages, our official languages, our indigenous African languages, is our beautiful language policy at the university, at the Northwest University. Throughout the week, we've been sharing with students, with academic leaders, with all our colleagues that we have such a beautiful language policy at the Northwest University, wherein we have English, Afrikaans, Sesotho, and Setswana. And the message that we're taking out there as the Language Directorate is that all languages matter. All languages matter and all languages are equal. All people in the university, they do matter, and no one should ever be excluded because of the language they speak. So as we are here in this colloquium, we are spreading the same message that our indigenous languages matter. Multilingualism matter. It is not a barrier, however, it is an asset. With that being said, colleagues, I think maybe what we can do, because we are really running behind time, I hope my director will not kill me for this, but I would like to check if Prof Suzanne Van Rooyen is online. Prof Suzanne, can you hear me? Okay, colleagues, seemingly we might have a little bit of a problem, but that should not stop us from proceeding. I think we could always go back to the two colleagues who are not here yet. I would like to call upon Sadila, who are number 3 on the program, to come and share what they would love to share with us as the Language Directorate. I understand that there's a recording as well. If we may just play that recording before Ms. Lihle joins us. Yeah, thank you so much.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at today's colloquium. Apologies for not being able to be there in person. So I'm currently in transit. My colleagues are there to take any questions, and you're also welcome to contact me directly. I will provide my email address at the end of the slides. Today I briefly want to provide you with an overview of what we are as SADLR, what our programs is about, the role of us as an infrastructure, how we link with the current use of language resource audit that was conducted in the sector, and where do we go from here, and how do all of this links to multilingualism, and how that can create a pathway for academic excellence through diverse resources. For me personally, and I think it's been shared quite a few times by different colleagues, is that language is a carrier of knowledge. And what we do at SADLR is really opening up access to that knowledge through the tools that's been developed, through the core resources that are developed by our nodes and by the community. And central to all of this stands that there's a need for partnering, there's a need for sharing and collaboration to make these goals a reality. So a little bit of background about SADLR. We are a national research infrastructure funded by the Department of Science and Innovation as part of their South African Research Infrastructure Roadmap. And as an entity, we are set up with a hub, and then also different nodes with different areas of specialization, ranging from text technology, speech, digitization, child language development, WordNet, and then language and teaching testing. In terms of what we do, is we run 2 main programs: the digitization program that really focuses on creating the core data sets needed to build new technologies, test existing technologies and so on, as well as the core technologies needed to parse our African languages. Then we've got a second program around digital humanities that focuses on promoting the uptake of computational approaches in the humanities and social sciences. So overall, the role of infrastructure, what is that about? So central to this stands, we are a national infrastructure, we have a national role, and we're there for the national benefit. It's about supporting, enabling initiatives, and at the core is also, it's not about owning. So when we have our repository where a lot of data sets and information about data sets is shared, it's not taking ownership of that, but rather playing a role in aggregating it, curating it, and making sure that there is a long-term home for outputs of projects, and to make sure that the hard work that went into doing certain projects doesn't go to waste. And then essentially, as I mentioned, really what we have as part of the core technologies is essentially building blocks that can be used to build down.
Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for that. Seemingly we have a technical glitch. Oh, not a problem at all. And I'm happy that we do have somebody from Sadila.
But some before of these activities, we currently have the South African spelling checkers that's been developed by CTEX, available for free to use by organizations as well as individuals across the country. It's available for free, downloadable from our website. Further, as part of our digitalization programs, also our speech node that create, for instance, speech recognition systems, as well as speech synthesizing systems, and then also our child language node, which then also plays an important role to see how we can catch language challenges very early in the process. I also urge you to look out for open calls in coming months, where community members can also come with proposals around work that can promote more data in African languages or activities related to digital humanities. As part of a DH program, we specifically aim to create new communities of practice that works to promote the use of computation approaches in the humanities and social sciences. There's monthly colloquiums available on this, and then also some of colleagues attended this last week was the DH Ignite events that we cover in the country in different regions to really reach all the universities and really build communities to face the new affordances that exist in the current age. So when it comes to us and multilingualism, the core aspect that we've been involved in the last year is conducting the user supported language resource audit at all higher education institutions. And at the core of that process was to play a role so that we can realize this aspect of the new language policy framework that focuses on promoting, strengthening the use of all official languages across all the domains in higher education, ranging from scholarship, teaching and learning, and wider communication in line with our constitution. So as part of the first phase of the audit, what we looked at is to essentially see what resources are available in the sector, what aspects does the university community see as missing or lacking that's required to make multilingualism a reality, and then also specific milestones, where a specific university has done very well and walked a mile, what can be shared so that other universities can learn from that and build from that. The second phase of the audit has also now recently started. Feedback of the results has been given back to universities. The main report has now been finalized. It will be shared at the use of board meeting in October, and then the final VC colloquium at the end of the year. But now as part of phase 2, we are now in the process of aggregating the actual information about the resources, so that the metadata essentially, where is it, what is it, in what languages is it, who can be contacted. Because central of that, if you think back about the first slide, it's about really creating the networks and collaborating on things, so that if one university is busy developing Setswana work for psychology and another university is also doing that, they can work together. Or universities can share. So one university might have a resource available in mathematics, another one might have resource available in engineering, and that way resource can be shared, and we can work from a baseline of what is there, and we don't need to start everything from scratch. So this is really to work towards lessening duplication in the sector and strengthening collaboration in line with the framework that has been that has recently started. So where to from here? And this is where my colleagues will share some exciting news about a project that we are launching in Heritage Month. And this project will essentially focus on promoting and profiling the use of African languages and growing the user community that generate text in African languages. This project has been done in collaboration with Pansalb and Wikipedia, and over the next year we will visit at least 10 different universities to train up new authors for articles in Wikipedia to really broaden the use of languages, that it doesn't just stay within, let's say, the higher education sector, but really that what we have available, the tools, the resources, that it also benefits the broader community within South Africa. As mentioned, you're welcome to reach out to me with any questions if you have, and my colleagues will share now more about our SWIP project launching later this month, and we hope to collaborate on that as well with the NWU. All the best.
Thank you so much to Sadila for that beautiful presentation. Joan would have loved to be here, but unfortunately, because he's traveling, he couldn't. But before I allow any guests, any speakers to come forth, I would love to welcome the big boss, the lady, the head of the house, Dr. Kia Seshokha, to welcome all of us here present. Just a round of applause for her.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our language colloquium, to our special guests. Online, we welcome you, Pedro Alvarez, my Bakonde chief. Good morning. We welcome Prof Gilbert Mutsatebe from Mahikeng campus, who will be one of our panel members. Welcome. We welcome Patricia. We welcome Dr. Marilei. Welcome from Vanderbilt Park campus. We welcome Melody. We welcome Didi. We welcome Basil. And we welcome Denhauser. And we welcome all other members that have joined. Prof Susan, welcome. She's one of our panel members. And a special welcome to all our guests that are here with us. I just want to welcome Dr. Salima Eba from Pensab. I just want to welcome Ntate Manana, Northwest Provincial Language Committee. Thank you. We thank you so much. I see our partner in crime, Ayanda. Welcome, Ayanda. Our support at the Faculty of Engineering. And I just want to welcome everybody that has joined us in this colloquium. We're going to have a beautiful discussion. And we believe that from here onwards, we're going to be having fruitful discussions about multilingualism. And we're going also to be having interesting conversation about how do we decolonize, the multilingual resources. We're going to have an interesting conversation. How do we create resources and make sure that multilingualism becomes a pathway, That is the theme of our colloquium for this year. And I just want to say, let's have a fruitful discussion and let's all make sure that we come with solutions and we don't only talk about challenges, but we also come up with solutions to this problem. It's not a problem, to this task that we have been given to make sure that the university uses its language resources effectively. And I just want to welcome our SADILA partners. Yeah, I'm excited because SADILA is one of our strategic partners that has made sure that we have resources. I believe that we all have listened to Juan's presentation about the resources that are already available, especially the spell checkers and other interesting things that are available. So right now, we're not going to say we don't have resources. We're going to say, how do we multiply these resources? How do we make sure that these resources reach the audience? And how do we make sure that we maximize these resources? So a warm welcome from me, and let's have a fruitful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kia. Colleagues, I think you've heard it from the mother herself. I think what is important to take from her welcoming note is that we're no longer debating whether African languages should be developed or should be added on our policies. Now we are looking for solutions. I think we are all on the same page on that one. We should be looking at how can we make these languages academic languages, scientific languages that we can use for teaching and learning. It's no longer about whether they should be there or not, but they're already there. We should be looking for solutions in terms of how best we can develop them. Colleagues, without wasting any time, I'm just going to, I realize that Prof is already here, or Prof Susan van Rooyen. I don't know, Prof, if you can just please give us the second bullet on the program, which is setting the tone. Prof, can you hear me? Prof Susan van Rooyen. Prof, if you can just join us on Teams, we will quickly sort that out. Whilst we're sorting that out and trying to connect Prof, we would like to call upon Ms. Lihle from SADILA to just wrap it up for us after that beautiful presentation, visual presentation from Juan. Lihle? Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. It's really humbling and exciting to be part of this language awareness program. And these are really the kinds of platforms that we really need when we're talking about collaborations, partnerships, that will actually assist us in terms of sharing content and creating awareness, and also and just getting us to be really intentional with topics relating to language development, language preservation, multilingualism, language digitization, et cetera. And just to emphasize the importance of really pulling together as language stakeholders, it's really humbling. And I really do believe that such partnerships and collaborations are indeed necessary for all of us. So on behalf of SADILA, I think my senior, who was actually who did the recording, has already laid a foundation and set a tone of what our mandate is at SADILA in terms of making language resources available and accessible, and what are the strides that we are really trying to do. So I love how Dr. Kia Seshoga has said it as to our mission now is to ensure how do we try to multiply resources that we have already, and how do we actually make sure that these resources are accessible to everyone. So my task for this morning, colleagues, is very short. I just want to take you quickly through our very brand new collaborated project called SWEEP. It's a very new baby, and we are very excited about it. So I'm not sure if we can actually share that link so that we can take colleagues through it as well. I'm not sure if it's visible enough. Thank you about it. So my name is Lihle Sosibo. I am the communications practitioner at SADILA. So we have these new projects that we are so looking forward to be launching in September. It's called SADILA Wikipedia Pencil. We shortened in short, it's called SWEEP. So it's a collaborative initiative by the South African Center for Digital Language Resources, which is SADILA, and the Free Encyclopedia, which is Wikipedia, and the Pan South African Language Board, which is PenSouth. So how this project will be launched officially on Friday, the 22nd of September at UNISA. And after this session, Dr. Seshoga promised to actually extend the invitation to the Language Directorate so that you are also part of this launch that we're so looking forward to. So we are actually launching this project in September. We felt that September will be really befitting since it's the Heritage Month, and since the project is themed Preserving Languages, Open, free, accessible knowledge for all. So it was actually fitting that we launched it in September, the Heritage Month, and also because the idea that we had when we actually brainstorming and putting the project into concept, we had this idea of actually bringing in the theme of preserving languages. So that is why it is called Preserving Languages, Open, Free, and Accessible Knowledge for All. So we felt that September will be very appropriate. So how this idea came about, we had that thinking of how can we go about really celebrating indigenous language. That was the idea we had as SADILA. And then Wikipedia came on board as well and said, no, we will actually put a cherry on top of this. We want to partner with you, SADILA. We will be providing authorship workshops for any writers at universities. It could be academics or students or general writers with an interest of writing and getting their work published on Wikipedia. And we were so excited about that with Wikipedia. And then our colleagues again at Pensalp, they also came on board and said, no, we want to be part of this initiative as well. We want to come in during these workshops, and we just want to quality assure the writing that participants will be contributing to before that work actually gets published on Wikipedia. So that's how the partnership came about. So the project aims, if I can just go through them quickly, is to bring together communities of language practice, such as universities, language directorates, and language entities, practically to actually advance and celebrate the use of South African languages. That is our first project aim. And then the second one, we aim to also encourage language communities of practice to actively participate in contributing towards encyclopedia. Those are the project's aims. So who are we actually targeting? So how we actually phrase that is that anyone who has a passion about language, culture, and who understands the power of written expression and language preservation, those are the people we are actually looking for. So we are actually aiming to empower aspiring authors, language practitioners, lecturers, students, and the language community at large with the skills needed to contribute to the preservation of languages through writing. Those are the people we are actually targeting. So how do we intend to actually roll out this project? So this project is scheduled to run from October 2023. So we're gonna have a launch in September, September 22, and then we've already started communicating with some of the universities, and the first universities that we are targeting was iWolsasi University and the University of Mpumalanga. And then somebody might ask me as to why these two universities particularly. So I think we might be aware that this year isiXhosa is celebrating 200 years the language actually published. So we thought it will be wise to actually take these first authorship training workshops to Wolsasi Sulu as part of celebrating isiXhosa language as well. And then why also the University of Mpumalanga is our first target, it's because when we were brainstorming this project, one thing that came up was that isiNdebele is one language that really lacks footprints when it comes to the language being published on open platforms like Wikipedia. So we felt that our focus, let's put extra focus on isiNdebele. So that is why we're targeting the University of Mpumalanga as our first universities that we're gonna target for October this year. And then from next year, we will then do the rollout as we have targeted 10 universities also across the country. And it would have been like great if we could actually expand to all the universities across the country, but unfortunately the funding limitations that we have, and that is why we're still appealing to partners, organizations, businesses to say, please come on board. We really want to take these authorships trainings to all the universities across the country. If you can come on board also and support us in any way you can, whether it's financial, we'll appreciate that, but also like maybe sponsorships, like maybe a university can say, okay, we will sponsor a venue, we will actually sponsor travel cost for the Wikipedia trainer. We'll appreciate that also. And those are the links we're trying to make with universities and organizations to just find a link on how we can all come together on board and try to expand on this project. So yeah, that's how we intend to roll out the project. We are targeting 10 universities across 6 regions, and we will be training 20 participants per university. That is the plan. And what are the outcomes for this training? What will be the outcomes for these workshops? So it's going to be, the workshops are structured like they are 3-day intense training workshops. The first day, it's going to be introduction to Wikipedia, which is going to be including training on adding citations. And then day 2, we're looking at advanced Wikipedia editing, where we're looking at adding content and photograph to writing. And then day 3, we are focusing on training the trainers, because the other plan also is to ensure that the project is actually sustainable. After we leave each universities, we are comfortable that they are Wikipedia people that we will be considering as trainers, who will actually be able to expand and train more students and academics in the university. So that will be cycle 1 of the project. We're targeting Northern region. We're looking at University of Venda, University of Mpumalanga, and then the Central region, we identified Val University, Tshwane University, and UNISA. Western region, we're looking at Cape Peninsula University. KwaZulu-Natal, we're targeting University of KwaZulu-Natal. Northwest region, we're looking for, we identified Central University of Technology and Sol Plaatje University. And then Eastern Cape region, we are targeting Walter Sisulu, like first alluded. And then we'll also on the, so that will be the first cycle of the workshops. And then the second cycle, it will comprise of just 1 event that will follow soon after the 3-day training events, to allow the trained participants to run their own training event. And of course, Wikipedia will be there, and Pental will be there to support that the train the trainer sessions happen smoothly. So we are already in contact with the universities, and we are excited about this collaboration, about this collaborated project. And I do hope that amongst us, somebody has already identified a link as to how they can link into this project and just assist us to expand this project further. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lihle Sosibo from SADILA. Thank you so much to SADILA. I think one of the important things our director always says is that there is nothing that beats collaboration. If we all work together and just put our resources together, we can achieve more. And we thank SADILA for actually providing and developing these digital resources for our indigenous African languages. Thank you so much. Without wasting any time, I can see Prof Van Roy is here already. Prof, the platform is yours. Thank you.
Dear all, let's see, am I part of our conversation now?
Yes, you are, Prof.
Happiness. Dear all, thank you for bearing with me for a moment. I want to make a few brief remarks about setting the tone for our conversation, but I think it has already been said beautifully by the colleagues from SADILA. Kia, I was thinking about the topic that you set out for this morning. What do we mean if we think about the decolonization of multilingual resources in institutions of higher learning? And I'm so glad Pedro is in the room as well. He and I attended a conference last week, and we had a lot of conversations in Germany about the use of African languages in higher education as well. So I want to start by the whole idea of setting the tone. I want to ask, what do we mean by decolonizing our thinking around multilingualism in higher education? And I wanted to start by saying what it means to me, and then to share a brief story with you, like us Africans do, and then asking some questions which I know will be addressed in our conversation. So what does it mean to me if I say I need to rethink this issue of decolonizing multilingualism and the use of African languages in higher education? To me, the focus is very heavily on changing the hearts and minds of people towards the use of our African languages in higher education. In other words, working very strongly against this idea that African languages are only good for cultural identity and not also good to use in high status domains like universities and in higher education in general. So that's what I mean by decolonizing. I want us to decolonize our minds and to rethink the attitudes we have towards the usefulness of languages at all domains, from the home domain, which is a really important domain, up until domains like high status domains in government and in higher education. And at this conference, Pedro will know the story. I tried to use the continuum. Those colleagues in the room, you will know the work of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. You will know that Ngugi wrote about the cultural bomb. And Ngugi said colonization is like a cultural bomb that atrophies our imagination. So that whole notion that because of colonization, we as Africans were sort of damaged to such an extent that we stopped thinking about our languages as important languages in the domains of higher education and education in general. So that, I think, is the one end of the continuum. But then I also started to read, based on my husband's advice, I started to read the work of Eskia Mphahlele. And he wrote fantastic material. I think his work is undervalued, and I'm definitely going to read more of his thinking, because Mphahlele, on the other end of the continuum, wrote about how do we work towards salvaging and rescuing our imagination as African people. So that's how I want to set the tone for today. And several of our speakers have already remarked about this, saying we are beyond the point where we are thinking that African languages do not belong in higher education. We are way past that point. We are at a point where we are saying that African languages are definitely part of the conversation in higher education, an important part of the conversation. I want to close these few notes by relaying a little personal story, because I think stories are important in our context, and they help us break through difficult concepts and help us to think about difficult things. So the story I want to briefly share is my one and only personal meeting with Dr. Neville Alexander, the father of multilingual thinking in South Africa, in my view. In 1997, I was a young and eager lecturer at the then Vaal University of Technology, or the then Vaal Triangle Technikon in Vanderbijlpark. And it fell on my shoulders to act as the convener to change the language policy of the institution. At that point, the policy was one of Afrikaans-English dual medium education. I know there are people in the room who have not been born in the late 90s. Am I right? But imagine that magical time in the history of South Africa in the mid-1990s, where we were rethinking and reimagining a post-apartheid South Africa. So long story short, I led this team. We did consultations with stakeholders. Kia, very much like we do at NWU. Consultation with parents, consultation with students, consultation with academics. And we drafted a new language policy. And I, as a young scholar, at that point, I already knew we need good evaluations of our policies. Otherwise, we might run into very hot political seats. So I invited Dr. Neville Alexander to come to the VAL and to really verify that the processes we went through to get to our new policy make sense and that they were fair and valid. And one of the questions that were not asked during that whole conversation was why, when I proposed that Sesotho should incrementally be introduced with English as a language of learning and teaching at the former Vaal Triangle Technikon, why the students so vehemently opposed that proposal. Johannes Mathasela is in the room as well. Johannes, you will remember the political tensions in the Vaal in the late 90s. And right at the end of these conversations, I asked Dr. Neville, why is it that we can't use and start to use Sesotho? And he, with his those of you who have met him, he was a thought leader. So he quieted down, he looked at me, and in a very measured voice, he said to me, Susan, the students cannot even imagine the use of African languages in higher education. So they cannot even imagine their Sesotho as a language used for higher education. And with that story, I want to conclude this whole idea of just setting the tone for our conversation. On the one hand, I think we bring a good news story. As our colleagues from SADiLaR already said, as Dr. Kia already said, as our MC has already said, we are beyond the point where we need to imagine African languages in higher education. I think we have progressed on that route. We are doing what Eskia Mpatlele, I think, has said, and that is we are already rescuing our imagination from a decolonized position where we don't think about African languages as powerful resources in higher education. But I think Dr. Kia already said this as well. So I'm so glad. We always speak from one place, which is great. And that is, how are we going to harness our resources? How are we going to find platforms, and maybe Pedro and Kia can speak a bit about Polokwane, and how are we going to harness with institutions like SADiLaR? How are we going to harness everything we've already developed and learned about the use of African languages in higher education so that we can collaborate? And that is the last message I think Pedro and I bring from the Loud Symposium that we attended last week, where we talked a lot about Pakonde, about the Northwest University, and about all universities in South Africa implementing African languages. And that is, how are we going to collaborate more effectively? And Kia, that is something you brought into your welcoming and opening address. How are we going to collaborate within Northwest University so that we develop terminology, shared terminology across disciplines, across faculties? And how are we going to collaborate from Northwest University with other universities? I hear that KwaZulu-Natal has now, the University of KwaZulu-Natal has adopted Sesotho as well as their second African language that they want to develop alongside isiZulu. So how is Northwest going to collaborate with UKZN? with the Free State, with Wits University, there where we developed Sesotho and Setswana as the selected African languages. And then lastly, and maybe we can hear Pedro on this as well, is how are we going to collaborate more effectively on the continent? What I've heard at the Loud Symposium is that we are at various places along this continuum of imagining the use of African languages in higher education. And Kia, I'm raising that question to you, not as a challenge, but as a question to say, will that be the competitive advantage of multilingualism in higher education in South Africa and at Northwest University? Will we be that hub, that center for conversations about African languages across the continent? That is what I am imagining. I look forward to the rest of the conversations, and Dokia and our MC will call me in when they need me, but I'll keep notes, and maybe at the end we can have a few concluding ideas again. Thank you, colleagues. I'm looking forward to the conversations.
Wow, talk about setting the tone. I thought Dr. Gia and Sadila had done the job already until Prof came in and he said, hold my mic. Thank you so much, Prof, for a beautiful, beautiful message. I think the message is clear, colleagues. We need to decolonize our minds. This mindset that we have and attitudes that we have towards African languages, it needs to come to an end. And we need to stop imagining, and that's what we've been preaching here today. And I think without wasting any time, because we are running very much behind time, I would like to call upon Prof Pedro, all the way from the University of Salamanca in Spain. And Prof, I would like to challenge you based on Prof. Suzanne's message here today. We would like to hear more from you in terms of how best we can collaborate effectively. And I hope you did hear Prof. Van Roy in terms of you actually elaborating further in terms of how can we collaborate, because the message also is very clear that we need to collaborate. We need to put resources together so that we can win this big giant, together we can just do more. So Prof. Pedro, if you can just unmute and the floor is yours.
All right, good morning everybody. Greetings from Spain, Molweni nonke, Sani Bonani, Numelanlekai, Hoya Mora. Good morning. It is an absolute honor to be able to join this Language Awareness Week one more time. It's becoming a classic for me. It's becoming something that I truly feel inspired with. Well, many things have been said already. I don't want to repeat myself, but I don't want to repeat some of the ideas that we have said, but I want to thank Professor Susan Kutsia for not only for setting the tone, but also for doing something that is very important, which is inspiring people and especially speakers of these languages on a number of things that sometimes, because we are busy with technicalities and labels and strategies and all that, we forget the basics. We forget that we need to share and explain this idea, these complex ideas and backgrounds to all students, to all speakers of these languages. So thank you for that. Some of the things that we have been discussing so far are very important. Decolonizing this idea about multilingualism in higher education is one of them. It is so true. We cannot forget that it is a scientific fact that we learn better in our mother tongues. And I don't want the next Nobel Prize or the next best doctor ever. As a global citizen, I don't want this person to stop reaching that position because language was a barrier. We cannot afford that prize. And so since we are in the era of technology, and since we already know that our brains, is another scientific fact, our brains are born multilingual. They're designed in a way that can cope with multilingualism. That's the natural brain setup. Monolingualism is actually an exception to our nature, or so to speak, it's something that is a bit more natural. And then in this idea of reimagining, multilingualism, I totally agree with Susan Kutsia when she says that, we also need to look at the opportunities that come along with it. All right. It is true that multilingualism places challenges, but it's not unique to the South African case. It's everywhere. So sometimes I feel that my South African colleagues are very hard on each other, when it comes to, digesting these ideas. And it's true, it's a challenge everywhere. It's a challenge here in Spain. We also have multilingualism here. And we also, bump into walls every now and then. But you know what? What's the cost of living together in peace and in harmony? If it's a matter of money, we will have to put money there, because this is about us living together and getting the best of our society. So of course we need to prioritize what we're doing today. So that's why the mission that we have here today is so important. Another note that I think is important sharing today is that the current language policy framework in South Africa actually pushes universities to lead this process of transformation. Okay, so what we're doing here today, we're doing our homework. We are taking the language framework and saying, you know what, this is our duty. And we need solutions, as Kia Shishaka said earlier today. And in that specific document, there's a strong emphasis on interinstitutional cooperation and collaboration. And that's something that I will bring forward a little bit more. I know that we are not doing very well in terms of time, but let me use back. One day we think that interinstitutional cooperation is the way to go, and we have been cooperating and working together for about 3 years now, almost 3 years now, since 2021. And Bakonde is made out of it's a consortium that is made out of 7 institutions, 3 European partners and 4 South African partners, being Noordwes-Universiteit our co-leader in South Africa. So during these 3 years, we have been, first of all, our number one strategy was to reboost the equipment that we have to assist teachers and students to learn and teach multilingually. So each of our South African partners could decide what type of equipment they will need to boost their strategies. It could be translation booths. It could be more interpreting equipment. It could be, any type of software, printers, books, whatever type of resources we might need to make this from theory to practice, or from the exception to the rule. And that was what kept us busy for year one, I would say. And then since then, something that also was mentioned today is this idea of training the trainer. So what we have been doing, the 7 universities came together at each of the universities, and we recruited the best of our people and the best of our resources, and we put it together and we share it. You know what? When it comes to multilingualism, in my institution, we do this, that, and that. We have this translation technology. We have this, methodology in the classroom, and we illustrate that with examples, and we share that with other teachers and lecturers from multiple areas and multiple faculties, so they could also hold on to something. And they could also see that this change is possible, and they are not alone doing these things. They are not crazy, because they're thinking that allowing these languages in my classes is going to be a problem. Quite the opposite. They were leading by example, and all we were doing in Bakonde is giving them the visibility, giving them the visibility and the space, and so that we can multiply the effect of what we are already doing. We often say that we are not reinventing the wheel, but we actually are maximizing what we are already doing, sharing examples of excellence, and try that those examples become the rule. you know. And one of the things that I think Northwest University got very, very well from the very beginning is that idea of having a language directorate to set a direction, you know. I think that language directorate is a place where you can go and get answers, you know, and orientation, resources, you know. Even if they don't have them, they can refer you to the resources. And so I think in that particular way, we have been doing a great job at Northwest University. And then the third strategy, or the third area where we have been working together, is on the development of our Polokelo. Our Polokelo is the first interinstitutional repository of materials for teachers and students to learn and teach multilingually. So basically, what we are doing there is centralizing all those materials on all the faculties, subjects, and all fields that have been developed in the past, and we are developing today with Bakwande funds, and we are putting them together in this repository so students and teachers from all institutions across the nation can use them. So just to give you a practical example, I mean, there are a number of languages that are official languages at Northwest University. But what happens if you are a Sesotho speaker and you're sitting in a university in the Western Cape, and your language is not there? You still can go to the Polokelo, search for your materials, or select your language and see we have materials on that particular subject, right? If I have the time, I will quickly share the Polokelo with you, just to illustrate what we're saying. Just give me 1 minute, and promise I'll get back to you in a minute. So this is how our Polokelo looks like. All right, so if you go explore the catalog, basically you can Google Polokelo Bakwande and you get to the landing page. So you can go explore the catalog, and it takes you right away to the catalog itself. So here you can enter a keyword, whatever. I was just playing around with this earlier. You can filter by field of studies, by subject, or by language. So let me see everything that we have in Setswana. So the Polokelo will show all the materials from geography, education, natural science, law, whatever we have in Setswana. But let's say that I'm multilingual, so I just want to see everything that we have on biology, or any bioscience. Could be biotechnology, could be anything, right? So we have biology in Setswana, chemistry, biochemistry, we have lab rules, and check this, we have PDFs, we have videos explaining some of these concepts, we have key concepts in various languages. So that's the idea of the Polokelo. Of course, this is a work in progress, and it will take us a while to fully populate this space, or maybe it's a never-ending task, but at least we are already doing it. This is what it means, and how transformative it is when we work together. Because if every university with the same languages have to start from scratch, have to start from zero, we are wasting time and resources. And we cannot afford another generation of students who don't have access to these materials when these materials are sitting there in someone's computer. So this is one way of dealing with things. This is the Bakwande way of dealing with things. And hopefully somehow I contribute to your discussion today. And as Susan said, I'm more than happy to take more questions later, but since we are running out of time, let me leave it there for now. Thank you very much, and congratulations for this Language Awareness Week.
Wow. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. And I think it is amazing to know that our languages are finally there. We live in a digital era, and we need to preserve our languages in that digital space as well. So to look at such digital resources that are developed by our partners actually, like Bakonde, and we are part of those collaborations. It's even amazing. Yes, that's what the team is currently doing here. So it's amazing to see that we are forming partnerships that will also assist people like Sadila to ensure that we develop your spell checkers, just like Juan did mention earlier. This is amazing, colleagues. Without wasting any time, I would like to call upon one of our partners as well, the Pan South African Language Board, Dr. Sally Mayepa. A big round of applause.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much, Tolakele. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. She was just warning me that I only have 5 minutes, and I must admit, ladies and gentlemen, that I didn't really come prepared here. But as a language expert, you need to know what you are doing. So I believe I'm not going to be wasting your time. I'll just touch here and there, and my colleague will also be coming from the Pan South African Language Board, so we might be talking almost the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, just some few weeks ago, we had a conference that was hosted by the Department of Basic Education. And in that conference, they were discussing a theme, beyond policy and classroom benefits of multilingual teaching and learning. And, it was also alluded that South Africa strives to provide inclusive and quality education to all learners, and thus recognizes the critical role that mother tongue plays in facilitating effective learning and teaching. As a nation with a rich linguistic heritage where multiple languages coexist and contribute to our cultural fabric, it is important to use all languages equitably as resources for classroom learning. Now that today we are here, gathered to talk about decolonizing multilingual resources in institutions of higher learning, you see this transition, ladies and gentlemen. It is important also that the DBE and DHEAD, they sit together with the relevant stakeholders and come up with the strategies of enhancing the implementation of recommendations that are made from various seminars, the colloquiums and different conferences that we host. There were questions that were sent yesterday to us to guide us on how to approach the discussions. And for me, the first one that caught my eyes was, do we have enough resources to cater for the language needs of our students? I was very glad to hear the prof that was setting the scene to say we are beyond that stage of talking about asking such questions. And I will say the answer is yes and no. Why do I say that? We all know that things cost money, but let's remember that we have expertise that we need, that needs the funding to unlock this implementation. That's a reality, ladies and gentlemen. Free labor could be utilized if experts felt particularly loyal and passionate about their language. We need to prioritize our indigenous languages to decolonize multilingual resources in South African higher education institutions through teacher training in the methodology of teaching the language, especially to second language speakers, and in the strategies to handle a multilingual classroom. There's a project that I just learned of some few weeks ago that is done by UNESCO, and this is under the Education Sector Committee. They were calling upon, stakeholders to submit their proposal in terms of teacher training. And for me, because I deal with the South African Sign Language, immediately what I did was to grab the opportunity to say, there are so many complaints throughout the country that the teachers that are teaching South African Sign Language are not able to sign. So what can we do for us to be able to, improve the teaching and learning of the South African languages in schools? So that does not stop us to also talk about the training teachers in the African languages so that we enhance this implementation of teaching and learning in a multilingual classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, by doing so, we will ensure proper implementation of multilingualism in the classroom. There are questions that experts need to address, and I believe we do have those questions. Let me not take much time of addressing those questions. In my presentation, for some reason, I was trying to touch here and there, trying to address those questions. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Doc. I am so happy to see PenSALP here today, Doc. Because you know what, soon we'll be knocking on your door and saying, we want to standardize Setswana and Sesotho. So I'm taking this opportunity just to sneak in there. When that time comes, please open the door for us. Colleagues, without wasting any time, I would like to call upon Mr. Willie Manana from the provincial PenSALP. Thank you.
Siyabulela Nonkwanyana, if I heard you very well. Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am not going to talk too much in terms of, what is on the table. Dr. Maipa has already just indicated one or two things and also our position. But what I want to emphasize is that we as Pan-South African Language Board, definitely we are looking for such collaborations, partnerships, because we cannot do it alone. One thing that we are actually mandated to do is to create those conditions for the development of languages. So the conditions like, the SADILA, what Prof Pedro spoke about, Prof Susan spoke about. These are the conditions that we actually admire, and to say, look, if the platform is already set, and then what do we need to do is to bring all the resources, gather them together in one place. So that is our intention. And then one thing that I want to emphasize is that we've got the backing of the legislations. There is nothing wrong that we are doing. We are on the right path. So what we need to do is just to unpack what the legislations want and what is it that we can match the legislation with. So we know that we are actually founded or grounded from the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Section 6. We are also grounded from the PenSALP Act, which also actually puts our mandate very strong there under the powers and functions of the board, where we would actually talk about the issue of multilingualism. Over and above, now recently, we were actually backed by what you call the use of official languages, where it talks about, these entities who should actually come on board in terms of, realizing that multilingualism is the pathway. So we are actually in the right direction. One thing that I want to indicate is that through our effort as the board, we have tried that we need to reach as wide as possible in terms of our spread. In all the provinces, we've got the provincial languages committees, which are actually, mandated with monitoring the issue of languages, different languages in those provinces. Over and above, we had the national language bodies, which will be responsible for the standardization of what we are doing. You know that you cannot put anything without being authenticated. So we are the only body which is entrusted with such a huge task. So we are saying, alone we cannot do it. Make a material or produce, bring it to us, we shall authenticate, then we take it forward. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manana, for saying that. Actually, that is music to our ears. Yeah. We love hearing PenSALP saying this because we have so much work at the university that we would like PenSALP to assist us with. That is why I was saying, when that day comes and we knock, I can see that you will open the door for us now that you've made that promise, and I will hold you accountable. Thank you so much, Mr. Manana. Colleagues, we are running out of time, and I do not want to waste any more of your time. But one thing I appreciate that I took from PenSALP is that we are mandated by our constitution to do this kind of work. So if anybody asks you, why are you so concerned about developing African languages? the fact that we love doing this kind of work, put it aside, but our constitution mandates us as South Africans to actually do this. We are mandated by the language policy framework of higher education as well. So those are words I'm taking from PenSALP that we should never take for granted and we should take very serious. I think, Doc, through you, we have, I'm sure we have burning questions in the audience, and I would really love to take it back to you as well, just so that you can be part of this beautiful conversation, discussions that we are having here today, and acknowledge that you are here. Are there any comments or questions? One or two, because we are really out of time. Even online, actually, yes, thank you, Doc. Even online, if anybody has a question or two for our panelists, whilst they are still here. Oh, yeah. Thank you. May I please have a mic?
Hi, Tolage. So it's not a question as much as it is a comment or a thought. I hear there was talks, I think Pedro also spoke about it, in terms of do we have enough resources? That's a question that most people always ask. But we forget that amongst our colleagues, amongst our students, amongst our parents, amongst our friends, we've got loads of like dictionaries of terms and words that we can use. So resources are not necessarily a big problem, but with collaboration, we can generate those resources, those terms and glossaries or whatever we need to generate without spending too much finances.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And I think the gentleman over there might have a question as well. Thank you so much for that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Tolakele. My name is Litlaronolo. I just have a short comment. I think what the Language Directorate, PenSALP, Sadila, and others are doing in collaborating with each other is very important to make sure that we decolonize our language resources. But I think also what must be prioritized is engagement with the Department of Basic Education, because if you want to decolonize the language resources, it would be much more a seamless process if you started at basic education level. Because I think I'm a student activist, by the way. I'm the provincial chairperson of SASCO at the moment. In around 2018, we had language policy reviews and all that. We even had some march around campus here to try and stamp our foot on the issue of transforming the language policy of the Noordwes-Universiteit. One of the biggest challenges that we encountered is the fact that a lot of students that enroll into higher education come, or rather all of them come from the basic education system, and the language that is used there is mainly English as a language of teaching and learning. So if we want to really decolonize these resources, I think one of the most important things is to start at the basic education level and also prioritize indigenous knowledge systems, because what is it that you are decolonizing? Is it only the language resources, or do you want to also decolonize the curriculum content? I think if we also prioritize, and I think it would make it also seamless to transform the language resources if we prioritize also integrating the indigenous knowledge content into the current curriculum that we have, so that in KZN you have an education that speaks straight into the people and the culture of the particular tribe or the surrounding areas in Northwest and other regions like that. So that when you teach Setswana, you even teach the content, you know, and that's what becomes simple then. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, one more. I can squeeze in one more before I allow any response from our panel members. Anyone? There. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Thapelo Lebona. I'm with the Language Directorate of the NWU. Mine is just to try to chant a way forward in the sense that I would like to, there's this buzzword of resources, the buzzword of collaboration. And my proposal would be that if we could first start with the most important resources, the human resources. I'm sure each and every one of us here, if we are to, I know one or two people, you know, in the language field, and same applies with each and everyone in this room. If we can somehow find a way of consolidating the human resource with the idea of creating a platform where we can bring together all the language, if all the language directorate at some point, somehow they can come together. All these other resources that are scattered, they are there, but they are scattered. If we can have a platform where we all meet, even if it's once a year or once every 2 years, all this issue of terminology that this institution is working alone in this field, this other institution, we end up doing repetition at some point. Here is PenSalp. All of us, at the end of the day, we have to go through PenSalp in terms of the end product, when, for example, in terms of terminology. So my understanding is that the absence of that platform that brings together all the directorates, if I may put it that way, the language directorate, the absence of that platform, it's one of the contributing factor in terms of this scattering of either terminology, either the resources. So I think going forward, that consolidation, that creation of that platform would eliminate most of all our challenges. The last issue is that there has been previously a campaign of each one, teach one. If each of us, we bring one, in terms of the human resources, in terms of contacts, 1 or 2 people that I know. If I know somebody at VETS, if I know somebody at Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, someone may know someone at Basic Education, another person may know somebody else at UKZN. That resources, if we consolidated it, and we create a platform where we all meet. It may not happen now, maybe not 2024, but working towards the creation of that platform will eliminate most of our challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't know if we have one more. Oh, there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have one online. It's Prof Pedro. Prof, if you can just unmute and the floor is yours, Prof.
Thank you very much. I was just thinking about answering some of these questions. So I don't have a question myself, but let me know when is the right moment to do it.
Prof, you can just respond now. It's okay. The floor is yours.
All right. So thank you very much. Very interesting questions. I'm sorry that at one point my internet wasn't working well, so I couldn't hear all of them. But one of the things I could hear was a concern about going to schools, and make sure that the schools are actually well informed about what we're doing. And I wanted to share with you something that we're about to do in Bakonde. Basically, this is our next phase. We are about to visit the schools and telling them about all the changes that are happening in higher education so they can see a future in this, okay? At this point, it's about them imagining the future in this, but we also starting here, the change here at higher education, because we are creating the teachers of tomorrow. So those teachers will hopefully naturalize that multilingualism is the way to go. So eventually that change will also reach to the previous levels. But I agree that there is a problem there and well, a challenge there, I would say, but we will eventually get there as well. But we need to start somewhere. And I think institutions such as Noordwes-Universiteit are doing a great job in that regard. And then as for the last question, it's important to centralize these resources. And it is true that a lot has been done in the past and we continue to presently. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that our Polokwane will eventually be transferred to SADILAR as the final custodians of these resources. Okay, so we are not wasting time or resources and duplicating things and so on. And then in Baton, we also have an interinstitutional board that is making decisions at more level or national level to, in the sense of, towards which direction are we going. And this is also a board that can be expanded in the future. And it will be consisted of, or it will be made out of people who are willing to lead that transformation process in various universities. So hopefully, that idea of having all language directorates can be extended later on by means of this board or any other platform. But I agree that that will help to set a sense of direction and a more practical transformation at the higher education level. And I'm going to leave it there because of time reasons.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have one burning question for Prof. Gilbert. I'm just going to put you on the spot because somebody saw you are here. They just want to hear your take on decolonizing our minds and actually introducing a multilingualism in the classroom. What is your take from the Mapikeng campus? Prof? Prof. Gilbert?
Here, let me, I see I'm muted, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, no, thank you so much. It is a pleasure indeed to be part of this. And of course, I was hoping to speak, but yeah, the idea about decolonization is an important one. And in my career, I spent a lot of time working in different contexts. And two of those contexts stand out for me, which is Japan and the United Arab Emirates. Why? Because they privilege mother tongue education. And I think Prof. Pedro also affirmed this idea of the importance of mother tongue. But I was also very pleased to hear Prof. Susan van Rooij talking about changing the hearts and minds of our people. So this is what a good friend of mine, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the former president of Haiti, calls the psychological renaissance. Because if you look at the context where they privilege mother tongue education and you look at the corresponding results in terms of how those countries are doing, the answer is there for all of us to see. Because when you are building on mother tongue, you are essentially scaffolding because you recognize the fact that the students are already bringing knowledge to the learning context. So what do? You are just building on what they know already. So they are using the new input and they relate it to their context, and it becomes much easier for them to learn and excel in their study. So this is my idea. If you look at the question relating to decolonization, which is precisely around this idea, because if you consider the key constituent of decolonization as, for example, de-Westernization, Africanization, and domestication, it all boils down to this, because multiculturalism and multilingualism that we have here in South Africa. It's one of the resource that we have at our advantage, and we must use that to our best advantage. Unfortunately, at the moment, we are not doing that, and I'm very, very happy to hear that here at Northwest, we are moving in the right direction to try to bring that to the classroom, because that has ripple effects way beyond the classroom. For example, efforts at multilingualism or multilingual education also improves social cohesion. I'm part of the steering committee of moral regeneration and social cohesion. So I'm speaking about these issues from a more realistic perspective. So this is essentially my view that if we go this direction, we will go a long way, and eventually we will begin to excel in what we are doing. The quality of our education will improve significantly. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. And I like that you mentioned that our students are not empty vessels, and I think that's what we've been preaching even our translanguaging trainings that we've been offering to our SIs and tutors, that no student comes at the university empty in their heads. They carry a lot of knowledge, and it is our responsibility actually as academic institutions to harness and actually scaffold. And Prof Gilbert, I'm so happy that you actually brought that conversation forth, because it's about high time that we allow our students to be in a comfortable environment where they feel welcomed, where they feel they can access the knowledge and information that we are sharing in institutions of higher learning in languages they know and understand, so we can get to know what is it that is in their brain, So thank you so much for bringing that forth. Colleagues, without wasting any time, I think it is time we close our program. And for closing remarks, I would like to call upon Prof Susan. I'm not sure if you're still here, Prof, just to give us closing remarks. Yes, thank you so much, Prof.
Wow, I think Prof Gilbert has done a great job, and I think in already starting the closing remarks, I think Pedro, you've done a great job in already starting the closing remarks. I think the things that struck me, if I try to summarize, to put in a calabash what we've talked about this morning, I've tried to summarize in the chat. Ideas develop best through home language use. So if we can have home languages and additional languages in that mix, when we do higher education, ideas, deep ideas with deep understanding will develop best. The whole idea of social cohesion and inclusion through multilingualism. If we don't keep those two ideas, the cognitive development and the social cohesion together, then we might run into trouble. But both of these ideas are important. This idea that universities are taking the lead in terms of developing African languages in the education context. We've also seen that at the Loud Symposium last week, where the rest of the African continent was present, people from everywhere, from Egypt to South Africa. We were in those rooms together, and where we celebrated Neville Alexander's thinking about multilingualism as well. And we need to work with this notion. How are we going to link, like Prof Gilbert has said also, and Pedro has said, how are we going to link departments of basic education? And our colleague, our student activist colleague also said, how are we going to link this thinking from children coming from schools, going into a multilingual higher education? They come from monolingual English thinking, basically, into a multilingual higher education. And I think that links with this idea of reimagining African languages in education. and that goes from all levels or through all levels of education. But the most important concept, I think, in conclusion, would be how are we going to find platforms where all of this thinking that is happening can be systematically shared. And I think Bakonde has given us Polokelo, which I think will help a lot. So how will we go beyond Bakonde, to share, to continue to share after the project has finished? What will be the sustainable platforms? And I love the idea that the language directorates will become like the sport code. It will be the language codes for Pansalb, to collaborate with bodies like Pansalb. So the biggest excitement I have is that we are moving in the same direction. That is fantastic, coming from a variety of backgrounds, variety of contexts. We are all moving in the same direction. So well done to Dokia, well done to the MC, well done to the group of people who collaborated. Let's not let this go. Let's continue to share.
Thank you so much, Prof, for such beautiful words. Dr. Kia Seshokha, you are our mother, so you need to close this just like you opened it for everyone. Thank you so much, colleagues. You've been such an amazing audience.
Thank you so much. They call me the language mommy. Because they understand I have a passion for languages. It's not because of anything. I tell people that I don't come from a point of privilege. I come from a schooling system where everything was explained into my language. And then I got into the university system and everything is in English. I got a shock of my life. And I always tell people my 3-year degree took 7 years because of the language factor. And it was not because I did not understand, it was because of the language factor. But I thank God that the NWU is in a league of its own when we're coming to multilingualism. We're pushing, it's not easy. We have some challenges, yes, that we are still addressing. But I can safely say we are in the league of our own. And we are trying our best. And with that being said, Dr. Tapelo, the question you asked, you are spot on. Myself, and my colleagues from UKZN, we had our first meeting where we call it Language Directors Forum. So we're pushing that forum because we saw that there's a need there. We will be having a second meeting very soon, and I would like to request that if there are colleagues you know that should be part of this forum, please forward them to us. We are not reinventing the wheel. We are saying the language directors should have a conversation because they are the people who implement language policies in institutions of higher learning, and we should be collaborating more. Everybody that knows me, I'm big on collaboration. I believe that great work gets done through collaboration. And I just want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to thank our guests, Prof. Pedro, Prof. Susan, Dr. Maepa, Dr. Manana, Prof. Gilbert. A round of applause to them. Yes, and Tolakele, our MC, well done, well done, well done. Wow. And to all our online colleagues, well, thank you so much. Let's clap hands for them. Thank you so much. And our audience this side at Potchefstroom and other campuses, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just want to remind us, it's Language Awareness Week. We're still creating awareness throughout the week. So today, we did our colloquium. At 1 o'clock at Lovers Lane, we will be doing language portraits. Prof. Susan will be doing language portraits at Lovers Lane in Potchefstroom campus. And at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in Mahikeng campus, we are having literary day. We will be having Tuelo Gaubonwi. We are doing a review of a Setswana book that he wrote. I'm excited about this one. And also at Vanderbijlpark at 1 o'clock. Remember, we're having a language carnival. At 1 o'clock at Vanderbijlpark campus, we're having 60 seconds multilingualism game. So we're excited about that. Tomorrow, Thursday, we're having literary day here at Potchefstroom at 1 o'clock. And Mahikeng tomorrow also, 1 o'clock, they are having 60 seconds. And at Vanderbilt Park, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, they are having language portrait. Friday, we are having a big close-up. So we are collaborating with the Faculty of Economics, isn't it? So we'll be having Entrepreneurs Day, Cultural Day, and a closing ceremony for the Language Awareness Week. I just want to invite everybody, be on your cultural attire. There will be questions there will be puzzles that you'll be solving. We will be having goodies. We'll be having heritage foods that we've prepared for all campuses. All campuses. So we'll be having heritage foods, and for you to get the prizes, you need to solve a multilingual game. Interesting. So in your language, you'll be given opportunity to go through the game. But above all, here at the Northwest University, we're making multilingualism fashionable. And we are saying to everybody, even African languages matter in institutions of higher learning. And we are saying, from my heart to your heart, let's see multilingualism as an important resource. Let's not see it as a problem. Let's see it as a resource. And as a resource, let's work together to make it work. As Tapelo has said, and as Ayanda has said, we are in an ocean where we are picking different kinds of fish. Make sure that the fish you pick solves a problem. Even if you don't see how the fish that you picked, what it has done, but we are impacting one student at a time, and it makes a difference. I love that scenario, because we are saying here, even though sometimes we have challenges, one student touched at a time, it makes a difference. Each one, teach one. Thank you so much.
Colleagues,
Salahantle to all.
Yeah. There's nothing more I can say after that, colleagues, really. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you. Bye. Bye online.